give a quick reference or spiel on what they're about, why we should vote for them. And after the other candidate, if say there are two that are running for that position goes, then we will open it up for 4 minutes total of Q&A from you. And if you'd like to ask a question, we'd ask that you please stand, announce who you are, and direct the question at either or both candidates. So we're going to try to stay on top time-wise, because like I said, we've got a lot of folks to get through. And afterwards, we'll have plenty of time to mingle, and there are these wonderful refreshments provided by Kay Hoodenpyle and Terry Arnold. Thank you so much. That said, we'll start in. I'm just going to stay up here in the butcher block and invite you to come stand over here. So the first person I'd like to hear from is running for a Congressional District 3 position with the U.S. House of Representatives. And that is a race between Jamie Herrera Butler and Bob Dingenthal. And Bob was kind enough to come up here to visit with all of you.
Thanks very much for having me here tonight. And thanks so much to the gentleman I've worked with quite a bit here on trying to strike a balance in the forest, the environment, and commerce. And I think we made some real great strides today, so it's good to have partners in the area. First of all, I want to thank you for the most part for one of the most spectacular drives I've ever taken in my life. Coming out here from Salt Lake, it was stunning. Fall colors, beautiful grasslands. And I appreciate the turnout tonight. I know everybody has other things they want to do with their lives, and this is a real testimony, though, to what's important to getting out and making it happen in your district, in your community. You guys are the ones that pull it together and make the decisions. Not everybody does anymore. You may have noticed in the primary, we had about a 31% turnout statewide. It's appalling. 31% turnout is, it's literally less than a quarter of the people available to vote actually voted. And those are the ones that make the determinations for everything you do. So thanks for being so very involved. There are a lot of issues that are national issues right now that are very compelling. And these are the issues that get argued back and forth on TV and in the press and all that sort of thing. And I'm happy to answer questions on the big issues, but what I'm more concerned about and very interested in is what's important to you right here in this community. And I think one of the things you have to do as a congressman, as defined by the Constitution, is you need to be out amongst your constituents. The congressperson is your link to the federal government. And according to the Constitution, initially, they restricted it to no more representation to no more than 10,000 people. That was the original idea. And that idea, along with the fact that you have to run every 2 years, is to make sure that you stay connected to your community, because it's very different. As I talk to people here and talk to people in the economy before, this is an area I've driven through hundreds and hundreds of times, because I, at one time, with my brothers and sisters, owned a vineyard in Benton City. So I would go through this area all the time, and got to know some of the people. There's kind of central area where you stop and eat and get gas and that sort of thing. That's a big, very diverse county. The thing that I think is most critical for us to understand in Klickitat County is the economy is going to be different here than it's going to be in Clark County, in Lewis, in Pacific, Oconee, anywhere else. We have to pay attention to it. We talked to this young lady here about job training. Jobs are really evolving and really changing. I talked to another gentleman here a little bit about the jobs that are being shipped offshore in the senseless way that we lose jobs in this country in ways that really aren't very efficient for the economy, they're not efficient for the business, and they're certainly not beneficial to the individuals in the community that loses those jobs. But we do it because some of the people at the very top of these industries make tons of money in a very short period of time. So instead of looking to the long term, how can I create a solvent business? We pushed our businesses into a position now where they look at the next quarter. How can I make my stock bonus? How can I make that big money? Not how do I create a solvent business. You may have seen the stock market bouncing up and down 200 or 300 points on the Dow the last few days. That has nothing to do with whether a company's making good products, taking care of their employees, something good for the business itself. It is strictly gambling. It's important for the people, the backbone of America right here, that we all get part of the growth we get, because we sure enough have to pay the pain whenever things are bad. So my commitment to you and my focus in the next few years here as your congressperson is going to make sure that I mentioned in Goldendale, that you get your piece of the pie. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. You live a good life in a gorgeous area. You're very, very fortunate. And we as a country have to look at the backbone of America and say, how do we take care of it? How do we make sure the infrastructure is whole? How do we make sure the education is good? And how do we make sure that the economy remains strong, stable, and resistant to the fluctuations of the market that really should have nothing to do with what you do? So again, thanks so much for allowing me to be here tonight. And I have some information on the back, but I'll leave my phone number for anybody who wants to call. So if you want to call me, talk one-on-one, if you want to meet someplace for a cup of coffee in a small group, if you want to get a couple weeks later, I know that, but even afterward, I'm going to be involved in the community every step of the way, and I commit to you that this will be an area that I come back to. I'm sure the springs has produced the fall. I know the summers because I've been around the summer. Thanks very much.
Any questions for Bob?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I see a lot of silliness in politics where a politician gets elected and then he's just a lapdog to whatever party he belongs to. And I want a person who's got the guts and independence to vote and take care of his people. And that's what I want to know about you and your affiliation with your party and how you feel about the Second Amendment. You got the backbone to defend it.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, I'll address the party part of it. The party hasn't paid any attention to this race, not from the Democrat side, they may have from the Republicans. So I'm not beholden to anybody but my constituents. This is a broad, deep, and changeable area. So what they say in Washington, D.C. doesn't necessarily dictate what we do, and I think it's a mistake. I think, first of all, the party system does not identify, people don't identify with the parties like they used to because the parties don't do a very good job of defining themselves. So there's some things I like, some things I think that are going well, and some things that I think need huge changes. And unless you reach across the aisle, unless you work together, you get nothing done, and that's what we've seen. So as far as the Second Amendment is concerned, big issue, of course, you know, especially going to a rural area. I own guns, I hunt. I'm not against people having home protection, but what I think we need to do is find a way, and this probably isn't something that hits home in a rural community where people know each other and care and watch out for each other. But we see so much gun violence. 8 children die every single day in this nation from gun violence. And if that was Ebola, we'd be going nuts right now. So we need to not let adherence to the Second Amendment stop the discussion. We need to find ways to get things done, whether it's better mental health, whether it's, you know, which by the way, we're cutting like crazy. The CDC and the NIH now, they're cutting half when you suddenly have a crisis. So the Second Amendment is sacrosanct, but it doesn't mean we can't do smarter things. Yes, yes, ma'am.
What do you feel the role of inflation does for our economy?
Pardon me?
Economy and inflation in our economy?
I didn't catch the first part of your question.
How do you feel about, what do you feel about inflation and our economy?
Well, we haven't had a whole lot of inflation. It's been sort of suppressed, and inflation can in some respects be a positive thing, but it always seems to unfairly hit the people in the middle. Inflation throughout history of this country, and probably most everywhere else. Why is it every time that prices go up, they hit you in a place where we're most vulnerable to it? It's not like they're raising the price of Ferraris or anybody who cares about that. Food, gas, heating oil, things that affect us most. And it's because they can get away with it. And why, I don't know. Because the middle class should be the strongest voting bloc of all. When we need to look, the cost of education is one that's staggering. If the cost of gas went up as fast as the cost of education has, university education, you'd be paying $12 a gallon for it right now. And it's getting out of hand. I'm a parent with 2 kids in college. It's ridiculous. Even Clark College, which is pretty reasonable where my kids are going. So we need to stop letting one element of our society dictate everything to the rest. We always seem to give the brakes to one thin group of people on the idea that somehow it's going to come back. Well, I know some rich people, they're not the most rich people I've ever met, that's why they're rich. So, and if you make, if you're an entrepreneur and you're going to make big money, God bless you. I have no problem with anybody getting as rich as they possibly want. But when we have to do something, we've got to stop burdening the middle class every time we need more money for everything in this country. And it's doable. And if you've seen it in history, it's always a pendulum. It swings one way or the other. And right now, we're at a point where the disparity in income is the greatest it's been since the 1800s. So that's not healthy for an economy. You need a sustainable middle. You need a middle class that's strong. And there's you guys have probably heard the story about Henry Ford, not a friend of labor, not a particularly generous guy. He doubled the rates of the wages of his employees manufacturing his cars because he wanted them to learn their job, show up on time, not be drunk, and be there for years to come. Well, what happened? His business boomed. They bought his cars. The middle class boomed in this country, and we had a very healthy economy, and it floats all boats when you do that. So it's doable. It will happen. It's not happening now. Both the Democrats and Republicans are responsible for it.
Thank you very much, Bob. Actually, we don't have time for any more questions. We got to keep moving, guys. And in fact, candidates, I've got this wonderful yellow napkin here. Carry signals me. As your time's up, I'll just start waving this off to the side. So thank you much. We're going to now move on to the Legislative District 14 State Representative Position 1. And Norm Johnson is here to visit with all of you. So welcome, Norm.
First of all, let me tell you, it really is an honor to serve you folks in the state legislature in Olympia. As you know, you had a shock 2 years ago when we were redistricted. You had a shock and we had a shock. And all of a sudden, we went from the smallest, 14th district, in the smallest rural district in the state of Washington, to the 3rd or 4th largest district in the state of Washington. So we've had a real learning curve, Senator King, Representative Ross, and myself, because we had a lot of things in our new district that we had not had in our previous district. So we've spent a lot of time trying to get acquainted not only with people, but also with the things that make up the new part of the 14th district. We didn't have dams, we didn't have public power, we didn't have wheat, we didn't have timber, we had a lot of apples. So anyway, it is truly an honor to serve you, and hopefully you'll overlook some of our stupidity when it comes to the issues that affect the new part of our district. I happen to serve on 5 committees in the legislature. I sit on community development, housing and tribal affairs, and of course now we have almost the entire Yakima Nation within the boundaries of the 14th district. I also sit on the transportation committee. I sit on K-12 education. I just went on to that. The lady who was on it and represented the Republicans as the ranking member had a little difficulty with a couple of the other members, and she quit the committee, and the minority leader asked me if I would take her place through the rest of this year. I also sit on the higher education committee, and the gentleman that just went before me talked about the price, I don't know where he went, anyway, the price of sending a child to school today. And it's not an easy task for any of us. We were able to freeze tuition and on the state schools, and I think that's a good step in the right direction. One of the lady members from Vancouver, she and I introduced a bill that would have set up a revolving loan fund for these middle class kids that we want to call them, that you're not poor enough that you get a free education, and you're not rich enough for your dad to write a check. So anyway, we set up attempted to set it up, and we're going to reintroduce it again this year. And I also sit on the Rules Committee. That's the only committee that's chaired by the Speaker of the House. And that committee decides what bills will come out of committee to go to the floor. So it's kind of an interesting procedure that we follow. Thank you, Tom. And can I say one thing? I do want to say, 2 years ago, when Representative Ross and Senator King and I came up here, you'll remember, Tom, there were 5 candidates and 3 people. This is great.
Oh, okay. That's taken, and then if you want to field some questions there. So Michael Scott Brumback could not make it, but he did send something to Terry to be read to all of you, so if you'll bear with me. Hello, I'm Michael Scott Brumback, candidate for State Representative 14th Legislative District, Position 1. Many of my core beliefs are found in the Declaration of Independence. It is one of America's great gifts to the world, if we'd only listen. Our Creator endowed us with unalienable rights. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are the cornerstone of our republic. All people are created as equals in terms of human worth. We all have our talents, but what we do after our creation is up to us if we simply maintain the courage to insist on freedom and liberty. Liberty, fiscal responsibility, and constitutional principles are critical to prosperity. Government debt undermines prosperity. Indentures are children to debt and undermines their future success. Public pensions are mismanaged and funded with future promises. Excessive laws and regulations hamper businesses. The good old boy political system of perpetual government insiders has failed us. We need jobs for working people. My business experience counteracts government mismanagement. I fought Washington forest fires, prosecuted criminals, ran a business, and served in the military. Family and faith are at my core. My focus is jobs, lower taxes, veterans and property rights, strong families, locally controlled education, Second Amendment rights, and strong businesses. My opponent supported the DREAM Act. I understand the admirable sentiment to help children. The reality is that homeless veterans and other vulnerable people across the state take a backseat to political handouts. The establishment panders to special interests and plays politics instead of serving veterans who have served us. I will be a true friend and supporter of our veterans and make it a priority to address homelessness among our veterans. That is why I was instrumental in bringing the Veterans and Disabled Vets Legal Clinic to Central Washington on the Yakima Training Center. I am married with 3 children. I am an attorney, small business law firm owner. I have served for 28 plus years in the Army, that is active Army, the Washington Army National Guard, and the Army Reserves. I have been an enlisted soldier, NCO, and commissioned officer in Armor and the JAG Corps. My legal experience includes being a Yakima County Deputy Prosecutor, Yakima Assistant City Attorney, and Yakima County District Court Judge Pro Tem. I am a life member of the VFW, life member of the NRA, life member of Oath Keepers, a member of the American Legion, and a member of the Washington State Bar Association. I am admitted to state, federal, and Yakima tribal courts. My law firm is an employer supporter, 100 jobs for 100 kids at the Southeast Community Center in Yakima. I am a proud member of the Wounded Warrior Project. There are 2 Second Amendment related issues on the ballot. I-594 would criminalize many routine gun transfers among law-abiding citizens. This initiative will not stop bad guys who don't obey the law. I-591 would tie our state laws to a national standard. I don't think Harry Reid establishing gun law policies in the state of Washington is a good thing either. My position is no on both of these initiatives. It's time to reclaim constitutional integrity, fiscal responsibility, and bring liberty back. I value your consideration in this upcoming election. Thank you for your time and commitment to learning the issues and candidates. Sincerely, Michael Scott Brumback. So with that, if you'd like to respond to any of that or field any questions from the audience, we'll try to keep it to 2 minutes since we only have 1 candidate here.
Do we have questions? Okay, I am also a veteran, yes.
The situation with the budget and the Supreme Court and the decisions about the budget, you got any comment on that?
I certainly do. I think that what we're going to see is a very, very long session in Olympia because the Supreme Court in the McClary decision has said that we must fully fund education. And so that could be a real tussle, a real tug of war over how do we do that. You know, I think most of the sentiments of the people in my district, our district, do not want to see their taxes raised. So we're going to have to, I think, go through the budget with a very fine-tooth comb to see how in the world we're going to be able to, because we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $6+ billion to fully fund education. And that just doesn't for 1 year or one biennium. We're looking at more than one biennium. So it's going to be a real tussle and a real hard thing to do, I feel, to fully fund education. One of the things Tom has asked me to do is to go over some of the voter issues that you have in your pamphlets and that we have on our ballot. And so I'll save that.
Save that for last, right?
I'm also a member of the NRA, and I have the endorsement of the NRA for this election. Anything else? You have another question? Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
All right, we will now move on to Legislative District 14 State Representative Position 2 between Gina McCabe and Paul George. We have Gina here with us this evening.
That's great, because I kept hearing stories how there was going to be 3 people here. So I'm really happy. So
Tom's witness to that.
I know, this is great. Yeah. You said it was Halloween though, so maybe there was 3 people. I'm Gina McCabe. I'm running for House Representative in the 14th District. I'm from Goldendale, so I'm your local candidate, hoping to go to Olympia to fight for you. Our family has our family getaway in Gleenwood. We have 40 acres over bottom Mount Adams on there. And it's where we spend Thanksgiving and Christmas or whenever we just need to get away. No TV, so it's our sanctuary. So I grew up coming to Gleenwood and riding motorcycles and quads from the house to the store, which I don't know if that's illegal, but Dad let us do it, so yeah, do it. So thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate your interest in politics and in paying attention to the laws that affect you. I'm very interested in what we can take from our district to Olympia and fight. And so that's going to take a lot of work on your part because you have to stay in contact with us and make sure that we're representing you. I created a binder, literally, that's about this thick now, and it has pages of, winery questions and farming questions, who do I contact regarding energy. Well, that one's kind of easy. My dad's your PD commissioner, and my maiden name's Mossbrucker. So you probably know that I'm not going to buy into the system, and it's easy for me to say no. It's kind of a family thing. So, I'm family strong, business strong, community and education strong. That's what I'm hoping to take up there. Family strong. The highlights of this campaign, I cannot even tell you. This journey's been amazing. If I didn't win, I still win because I've spent so much time with my family. And we've run businesses for 25 years and everyone's going different directions. And this time together has been good. My sister does our PDC, which I'm glad somebody likes to do that because it's not me. And my parents take turns literally driving me from Yakima, and then they switch. And then the other one will drive me to Clark County because the district really is Clark County to Yakima. It's very far and it's amazing, but it's nice to have all that family help. So I wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for my family. So I think we really need to put emphasis in the family. To start with. How in the world? So I guess in closing, just remember I'm here to help you. I want to take our interest in the 14th. It's been many years since we've had representation from this end of the district. no offense, but I mean, living here, right? And I'm open to do that. Remember, every person you meet has potential to change the world, and this is my attempt, so.
So really quickly, this is not nearly as long as the last letter, but Terry collected something from Paul George, also running for this position. It says, Terry, I plan a trip to White Salmon, Bingen, and Stevenson later in October to push my message that the Gorge counties need representation in the heavily Democratic legislature. Among many issues, I will support the basic education funding plan to be crafted by the legislature that meets the Supreme Court ruling in the McCleary case by the deadline, closing day of the 105-day legislative session. I also will support the effort to double the budget of the underfunded Columbia River Gorge Commission as requested of the Oregon and Washington governors. I will work to shore up state funding for Klickitat Health and Skyline Health, the county's 2 25-bed hospitals. Both need help beyond that provided by the Affordable Care Act repayment for Medicare patients. Paul George. So with that said, do we have any questions for Gina? Or Gina, do you want to offer up any other comments since I cut you off there?
Yeah, well, we usually have 5 minutes, so let's get into the restrictions. And I like to talk anyway, so. Basically, I'm a mom, I have a concealed weapons permit in more than one state. I do believe that to protect the Second Amendment is extremely important. Anything that encroaches on that is going to end up in a bad place. And I want to fight for business. You know, you've got a little store or restaurant over here that might be closing, and that should be open year round. There's a lot of taxes, there's a lot of regulations on small business. Small business is the backbone of all of our communities, and we have to fight to keep them alive. These empty storefronts from Yakima County all the way down through the gorge, we need to work on that. So that's my passion. I'll be here after too, so feel free to ask me.
Okay, I don't have a question, but I'd like to tell all of you, his name's Jay, not Tom.
Between Krista Schroeder and Darlene Johnson. Following the order of the ballot, Krista Schroeder will get first. So Krista.
My name is Krista Schroeder, candidate for Klickitat County Assessor. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Thank Grange for putting it on, and I especially want to thank my husband and my father-in-law who've been going around to all these meetings with me. I spent the last 12 and a half years within Klickitat County government working for you. So the first 5.5 years was in the assessor's office, where I was trained in cross-trained. For some reason I always get that lost. Cross-trained by experienced, knowledgeable staff. I did take a few classes, but one thing that I've learned with 12 and a half years within the county is that the institutional knowledge that the old-time employees have is absolutely priceless. I'm not saying that everything was perfect, but I just really learned a lot under them and through the classes that I did take. My specialty was the programs, which a lot of you would know being in either forest or farm. And one of the things that I did was implemented a countywide auditing system for the properties that were in the program, as well as a educational outreach program for title companies and realtors and purchasers of those properties. Because as you know, every piece of property that's in a program ends up dispensing those taxes that they would have paid off to everybody else. And it was very important that people coming in really could qualify and that they knew that they were getting involved with. The realtors, there was one realtor who was quite famous for saying, when people would buy property, sign here, it lowers your taxes by a cow. Well, the only thing people hear is it lowers your taxes. And so we needed to change that. And so we put a 6-month program in place where, like I said, we educated the title companies and the realtors, and all sales were to be pre-approved if they were in a program. And that worked out very well. At the end of the 6 months, when it was like the drop-dead date on everybody had to speak to the assessor's office, myself, at the time to continue one of the parcels in the program, there was like no glitches. So any change needs to be implemented over time, I guess is kind of my quick take on that. The last 7 years I've spent in the planning department where I have worked with the land exclusively. It's all about, you know, your zoning, what can you do on the property, whether you have critical areas, whether it's floodplains or shorelines or animals of concern or protected animals. And so pretty much, you know, I'm very, very familiar with the property as a whole, whether it's in Nicholson or Trout Lake or Gleenwood. I'm a 4th generation resident. My husband's business, our business, Sugar's Well Drilling, is, you know, it's dependent upon the landowners. And just we're very, very, very much vested in Clickatack County. Are you waving or? Yeah. So if you have any questions, I'm available. I've been running ads in the paper. You can call me, email me.
Thank you. Just want to hang over the seat and I'll invite Darlene.
Okay.
My name is Darlene Johnson, and I have been the Clickatack County Assessor for the last 4 years. Before I was the assessor, I was what I like to call the angry taxpayer. I purchased a piece of property back in 2008, and I purchased it for $415,000, and they assessed me for $835,000, and I thought, this is insane, there has to be a mistake. Well, there was no mistake. So I went to the Board of Equalization, and I won at the Board of Equalization. As I did my research, I discovered they had problems with their statistics. And my background, just so you know, I have a doctoral in business administration with a finance specialty. And that means I understood statistics. And when I looked at what they were doing, I could see there were errors. And I wanted other people that were being overassessed to know about these mistakes. So I formed the Clickatack Citizens for Fair Assessments, but I didn't really get my message out there. So I decided that I would go ahead and take my knowledge and run for the assessor's office. And I pledge to increase the accuracy, reliability, and fairness of and the uniformity of your assessments. And I've actually done that. One of the things that I'm most proud about is that I have increased the appraisal performance. The prior administration, and I ran on this, I had a little thing in 2009 where they failed to meet some of the most basic standards for appraisal performance, and they had some of the worst scores in the state. We now meet all of the standards, and we have some of the highest scores in the state. I'm going to hand this out a little bit later. This is actually like a little chart that shows you what it looked like in 2009 and what it looked like in 2010. And when you're out here, it means you're either paying not enough taxes or too much taxes. When you're right around 100%, that means you're being accurately assessed. So statistically, I can prove that I have done what I set out to do, which was improve the standards in the assessor's office. I've also become an accredited appraiser. I've taken over 20 classes. I believe in education. I know that I don't know everything, and so I'm going to go out there and do everything I can to be the best assessor that I can for you. I've also taken 12 different classes on assessing type issues like levies and personal properties. I've actually worked to reduce taxes for the seniors. There's a senior citizens exemption program that's designed for seniors that make less than $35,000 over the age of 61, and through our, we've advertised, we've actually sent someone from our office to go to the free AARP tax things, and you could do your taxes and come right over to our desk and sign up for your exemption program. We've increased 44. We have 44 low-income seniors that weren't getting an exemption that they deserve that are getting it now due to what we've done. I've also listened to our farmers. Before, the prior administration did not have an open space advisory board. We now have a board. I now meet with my farmers once, twice, sometimes 3 times a year. Does that mean I have 3 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. So we meet with them, and now your assessments on your productive capacity are being done with the input from the farmers in your area. I've also decreased the appeal rate. We used to have one of the highest appeal rates in the state. Now we have one that's below the state average. So I've worked very hard to improve my performance, and I still have work that I would like to do, so I would appreciate your vote again so that I can continue my work. Thank you.
questions for Krista, or 2 minutes for a rebuttal, and then Darlene. So I want to go to Krista first.
Any questions?
Any questions for her?
What changes would you make in the assessor's office if you were elected?
There's actually several things that I would make changes on. Number one is, the assessor's office is all about the land. Stats are great, but really it's about the land. One of the things that I can bring to the table is I can read and understand and train people on legal descriptions. Property transfers, segregations, short plats, boundary line adjustments, and just straight up transfers are not being done in a timely manner. And I have a procedure that I would put in place to get that to happen very quickly in an acceptable time frame. I also have a lot of the institutional knowledge just from working county-wide to implement a cooperative working relationship with all of the other departments as well as the Board of County Commissioners. I think really getting the staff trained on all of the entirety of the assessor's office. It's not just about assessments. It is about, like Darlene said, senior exemptions, the current use programs. I'm very knowledgeable about all of those, and I would be able to train and cross-train everybody. I think that when you go into the office, you should be able to have your question answered that day, and that would be a goal also.
Do we have any time? That's just that 2 minutes?
10 seconds.
Okay. Any other words? Okay. Why don't we go to Darlene, 2 minutes?
Okay.
Or any questions for Darlene?
Can I rebut what you said?
Go for it.
First off, our transfers are happening timely. I just had a report today. They are all on time. We're processing things normally. There's occasionally a few that need a little additional service, but they get it. Our customer service scores, which are on my website, I actually have the previous scores and this scores, and you can see they were way down here and they are now up here. We've definitely improved our customer service in our office. I do have some things that I would like to change if I'm reelected, and that is I would like to see our check-in, check-out service on our laptops come into effect. I've been working on it. It hasn't happened yet, but this will allow our appraisers to actually take their information on their laptop and take it right out into the field. Right now, we print it out, we make marks in a book, and then we input it into the program. That leaves room for mistake. We can get out of order, there can be things. If we have our laptop, it'll be so much easier. The appraisers will be able to do the work right there in the field. The other thing that I'm working on and doing is getting GeoAnalyst installed. GeoAnalyst will allow our computer-aided mass appraisal system to integrate with our mapping service. So that means that I'll be able to look at your property and then look at your neighbor's property right in the system, and I can make sure you're being valued with the same method as your neighbor. That's really important for uniformity, because right now we'll open up that parcel that we have to go to the public mapping service, open it up here, copy this, put it in here, and then check it. And there's just so much room for error that way. Those are the things that I'm really looking towards, really getting our entire process uniform. Are there any other questions? Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Okay, next up, the Clickatack County Auditor. It's an unopposed race, Brenda Sorensen.
Thank you to the Green for this opportunity. I'm unopposed. I will make it quick. I will be around for a little bit for questions afterwards. It's been an honor to be your county auditor in the last 8 years. You put your trust in me, and I feel I've done a good job. Some of the things we've done since my last campaign is we've got our county code, which is the laws that the commission has passed. We have that available online. Our recorded documents back to 1998 are also available online, and instead of making a trip to the office, you can pull out your credit card and order it, and put it in the mail, and the state treasurer sends us a check later. So that's just, being Gleenwood isn't exactly close to Goldendale, so we're trying to make it not to keep you out of the office, but for you to save some money from coming all the way to Goldendale if you don't want to. In cooperation with the commissioners, we've expanded the veteran service program. There is a veteran service officer on Fridays in White Salmon and Wednesdays in Goldendale. And we've increased the number of our certified vehicle licensing operators. And we've taken on a project that's brought in more money to the county for licensing that wouldn't have been offered if the state agency would not have closed one of the state offices. We've simplified our method for the special districts to submit their bills for payment. They can upload an Excel spreadsheet rather than, anyway, we've made it a lot easier. I don't need to go into all that. I'm going to get the yellow flag here in a minute. I said I'm going to be short. We've extended our office hours. We're open 8:30 to 5. Licensing does close at 4:30. So we're continually working to cross-train our staff. And I'm welcome to have any questions, suggestions. So I'm done.
Which one of us? Her or me?
Go ahead. Sure.
What does a veteran service officer do?
Helps and assists the veteran obtain benefits, get any kind of service that they need, whether it be retirement, medical services, or any other service that's offered through the VA.
So it assists with interface between them and the government agencies.
Right, so you don't have to sit and fill out all your papers yourself and read this, he knows what it is.
Mhm. Thank you.
Pat, do you have a- Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to another uncontested race. Renee Campbell for Clinton County Clerk.
Sitting up front, I didn't realize how many people was here. I really am going to stand with the yellow flag. I'm Renee Campbell, as most of you know. I was raised right here in Gleenwood, graduated from Gleenwood High School with honors, went on to Walla Walla Community College, got my A degree. And that was in 1982 I graduated. In 1983 I started working at East District Court under Judge Churchill. And at that point in time, I was a deputy clerk. I did a lot of, as the deputy clerk, you had to do about everything in the office. I was in the courtroom. I got jurors collected, set the court dates, took the fines. It was just, you had to do everything. In 1989, Harriet, who I had worked with, she retired, and I was then appointed to fill her position. And that made me the court administrator, which then I was overseeing all the day-to-day operations of the court. Also in 1986, I took the non-attorney judicial qualifying exam, and what that meant, and passed it and was sworn in, when Judge Churchill would go on vacation or he'd go to conferences, I was allowed to, under his direction, to sit and preside over matters such as in custody arraignments, set conditions of release and bail and all that kind of stuff. I'm happy to say I don't have to do that anymore because it's just getting to be a more complicated world in our legal system. So to go on with that, Sandra Olson retired in 2013. I was appointed to fill her position, and last year I was elected to fill her unexpired term. So I'm now running for 4 years, so I won't be out there again for 4 years. Excited about that. And I'm sure a lot of other people are happy that it'll be another 4 years where they have to get out and hit the campaign trail, because it's a lot of work, and having a contested race is just not that fun. Mine was a contested race last year. I had a lot of fun doing it, getting out and going to all the county events. It's just awesome. We do have a beautiful county. As your clerk, I have been implementing procedures that a lot of things that I have done as the district court administrator, consistency to things such as collecting the legal financial obligations. You just have to be consistent on that and be dedicated to it, and do a little bit every week, and next thing you know, the rewards start showing. And I'm really proud of my staff and the things that they've done, and the cooperative efforts that we have at the sheriff's office, the prosecuting attorney's office, because it isn't just what we do, it's paperwork flows in all the offices that we work with. I'm just excited to be able to have another 4 years to continue some of the things that I've already implemented. All right.
All right, now on to a contested race for Clickitat County Commissioner 2. And that's between David Souter and Mike Richards. And David, you're first up.
Good evening. Wow, what a great turnout. You're right, Renee. You don't know that. That's good. Good to see. As I said, my name's Dave Sauter. I'm the current Clickitat County Commissioner from District 2, and I am seeking re-election. Why? That's always one of the first questions people ask. It's one of the questions I ask myself as well. And the answer is the same as it was when I originally ran, is really out of a sense of duty and commitment to this county. And really because I care. I care about the citizens and I care about the fiscal well-being of this county, and I think we're facing some challenges in the future that I think I have a unique set of skills that I can use to help us with that. You know, when I ran for this job originally, I had promised that I would bring energy and enthusiasm and some new ideas to the table. I had pledged that I would govern fairly, that I would listen to all sides of an issue, that I would not be a good old boy, and I think I have fulfilled those promises, and so that's really why I'm willing to. I would like to do another term. So let's talk about my qualifications first. Well, probably the first qualification is I've been doing the job for the last 8 years. And I am by nature, I'm a problem solver, and that's a lot of being a commissioner. That is what you're doing, is generally by the time we hear from folks, it's because there's a problem. It is not, when people don't know who else to talk to, when they don't know how they're going to solve their problem, they call the commissioners. And that doesn't mean we can solve all the problems, but we generally are able to get them off to the folks that actually have those answers. And I have done a good job at that. I think that I've been a pretty strong, effective leader, and I've been a strong advocate for business development, for infrastructure investments, for investments in things about public safety and public health. Those have been strong things for me as well. And marketing of the landfill, which that's actually, I'd like to talk about that for just a second before the flag goes. Just a couple things about the regional landfill. I think we've all talked about how important it is before. You've heard that, but I don't know that you know that the landfill is the single largest revenue source of the county. It's larger than property tax and sales tax put together. All of the property taxes collected in Clickitat County for general purpose government, of the county government, is $4 million. The sheriff's budget alone is $4.1 million. The landfill in 2013 generated $9.2 million. So $4 million from property tax, $9 million from the landfill. And I can say in 2014, we just got our third quarter. It looks like, that was a record in 2013. 2014 looks like we're going to break that record, so we will have a new record. So I guess I've been flagged. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Richards, and it's nice to be back here in Gleenwood. I just recently finished doorbelling up here, and I see a few familiar faces in the audience. For the rest of you, hopefully you found my flyer on your doorknob. I'm from High Prairie. My lovely wife and my 3 daughters are here in the back of the room with me tonight. I am a resident of the county for 8 years now. We bought back in 2010 and placed our farm up in High Prairie 8 years ago. And so we've been living here ever since. A little bit of background about myself. I have a 4-year degree in electronics engineering from Oregon Institute of Technology in Klamath Falls. I am also the treasurer for the Clickitat County Republican Party, which I'm pretty proud of. And I'm also the High Prairie Community Council president. And you say, well, what does that have to do with anything? One of the things that we've done up on the community council recently is I should back up a little bit and say, one of the other things, one of the cornerstones of my campaign is community involvement, trying to get information out to the community so that you guys can make better decisions about your government. One of the things we did in the High Prairie Community Council is we started videotaping our meetings, and we're putting them all on YouTube so that people can go back if they couldn't make a meeting, if they missed a meeting for whatever reason. If 3 months down the road somebody says, hey, what did they say back then? They can go back and they can get that information off the internet. So one of the things about my campaign is transparency. The other reason I'm running is I'm running as a fiscally responsible commissioner. The incumbent spoke a little bit tonight about some of the expenses in the county. One of the things I wanted to bring up, don't take my word for this, this is all on the adopted budget for 2014. In 2007, when the incumbent took office, total county expenditures were $30 million. Last year, they were $63 million. That's a 120% increase in 7 years. So, two questions you have to ask yourself. Has your household budget increased by that much?
No.
And why is that acceptable from government? Why did we take this? This is a absolutely ridiculous circumstance. And so that's part of the reason I'm running, is I want to get a hold of the budget and go back through the doubling of the budget in the last 7 years, go line by line through the budget and find out what it is that we can cut back on. And the other question you have to ask yourself about that is, have you noticed a doubling of services that you received from the county for that in that 7 years? My answer is no, I don't think that's true. And so that's two of the reasons that I'm running. A little bit about my background. I'm Mike Richards. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look for your support. Thank you.
Rebuttal or questions? I would defer to questions first.
I'm going to do a question. Transparency, I think, is very important. And I come from White Salmon, and I moved here 8 years ago, so I've pretty much watched. I've seen a lot of, I've learned a lot quickly, and I grew up in rural, so it wasn't a big stretch. But I also felt that good old boys club